Thank you. Hello, everybody. This is Oakwalker, and I'm here with Stronghorse. And we are Earth Medicine for the Soul. We're working on our 29th episode today, minus one that kind of got foobarred. But we were talking last time, as we went back through the archives, we were talking about becoming, because there's a whole lot of talk going on about the shift that we're in the middle of. And a lot of people see that as just like massive chaos. And everybody seems to be aware that everything is changing, that the old rules don't seem to apply anymore. There's a whole lot of reasons for that, and there's a whole lot going on. But I want to talk about why that's nothing to be afraid of.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the everything's moving so fast that what's gone down in the last 2 3 weeks since we last did our last recording, it's just kind of been like, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's almost, I mean, it's hard to like wrap your head around it. I mean,
Uh-huh.
literally, it just, I mean, it's borderline science fiction, I mean, it really is, but it just seems to be um, becoming manifest. I mean, it seems to be like it's starting to really happen, and I think like on becoming, when you said that, the first thing that came to my mind is that I remember going to several different seminars where they were talking about how to become a human being. They were becoming human beings. What
Uh-huh.
does that mean? What is a human being? And and I really think that's really relevant. Because I mean the complexity that the human being is from a spiritual standpoint is mind-boggling. I mean, it's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
If you say, hey, if it's true we've been made in the image of God, or like we said before, that we're all fractals of God,
Hmm.
then um, I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface, man.
Oh, yeah. It's an infinite thing. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. But what sprung to my mind then, because you use that term human being, and being is both a noun and a verb. It's a human being is an entity that is being in the universe. And that being verb is a very profound thought. It's a really big deal because you have to be in the present. You have to be um, authentic. You can't be performative, playing a bunch of mental games and mind games with yourself. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a gangster or a, deacon. What matters is that you know where you are in the universe and you are there and you are comfortable with it. And that's, I think, the essence of being a human being or getting, that's not the essence, but it's getting down there, it's pointing you
Yeah,
in the right
yeah.
direction.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, and like you said before about, we want to talk about not being afraid of what's coming, and that's a big deal, man. That's a big, huge topic because, um, we're in the place of the old systems breaking down and
Mhm.
going away and being replaced with new systems. And so, which means that a lot of us are going to have to relearn a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's a tricky deal, man. It really is, particularly when you have so many people that have invested their identity in these old systems,
Uh-huh.
and so all of a sudden, think. I mean, if half of the stuff they're talking about is true around this Atlas 31I, whatever it is,
Yeah.
then there's scientists who are just like walking into walls, man.
Yeah. They don't know what to do with
I mean,
it.
they're like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, they're really having to just, I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know how much of it's true and how much of it's AI. That's another topic we could get into, but
Yeah, it's down the road.
yeah, I mean, it just seems that, I mean, with all of this stuff going on, the key is authenticity, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. I really am. Where are you at with that?
Where am I at with authenticity? I
Yeah.
have moments of glory.
Well, talk
Um,
about it. I mean, like, what is it? I mean, if somebody comes to you and they're seeking counseling or whatever, and they're saying, what exactly do you mean by being authentic? What do you tell them?
um, thank God no one's ever come to me with that question. What I would have to say is that authenticity is the shedding of those things that you've been told to be. Okay, that's the first thing. So it goes along with, I guess I'm just going to have to go into here's what happened when I learned to meditate. Um, Seriously, the first thing I learned to do was take that journey from my head down to my heart. I visualized and I didn't project this visualization. I got to the my heart and there was a door there. I didn't create the door, I didn't make the door. I discovered a door there. And the door is surrounded by uh light, like light is coming around the seams of the door. And then so I've naturally, because I am Oakwalker, I opened the door. What's in here? And
Hmm.
what was in there was a a being that looked more like a flame than a person. This was my soul flame, and I knew it immediately. When I looked at it, I knew that that was the core center of myself, that this was a being that didn't need an identity. It just was. It was the light within me. And there, once I can, and so the first thing I did naturally was to embrace that being. And from then on, whenever I went to the center to do my grounding and do the center grounding that attaches me like a light string from the stars to the center of the earth, this being is the it's with me, and in fact, it is probably what is carrying me to those places. The stars to connect with the light and the ground to connect with the earth. This is the being that's making all that possible. This is my center and core self. This being is there regardless of what I've been told to be. It isn't male, it isn't female. It's not an electronic technician. It's not a guy who babysits troubled boys. It's not a guy who drives a white truck. It's none of that. It's not a liberal or a conservative. It just is. Okay. And this is the authentic part of myself. And it is also the part of myself that is connected to the absolute connection with the creator. So this is how I know when I go and relate to that part of my being, that this is how I know that there are no marginalized creatures in the universe. There are no creatures that do not deserve compassion in the universe. All of that comes from that connection with that soul flame, which is inside of me. And that's authenticity.
You know, for people who have experience meditating and or have some spiritual, background, I think that's an apt description and a good guideline. But for Joe Schmo, just came off the, you know, fell off the apple cart, and he says, how do you become? I think you used a word earlier that just really rang with me. And I think it's performative. I think we're
Mhm.
having to stop being performative. We have, I know that, I mean, I didn't even think, I mean, I never did it consciously. It's just that the more I came onto a shamanic path, the less that seemed important to
Yeah,
me. And I found myself changing, and the change was getting out of the need to perform. I
yeah.
didn't just refuse to do it anymore because
Or
it
seek
was so
approval, or
trivial and impotent,
yeah,
and so I think that once you make that step and you stop becoming performative and you become more desirous of being in line with the natural world and the natural progression or the stream of livingness, that
yeah,
you find yourself being guided in a way that authenticity now becomes substantive.
yes,
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't,
I do.
and it's so different from being performative.
Hmm.
And a lot of people that, of course, a lot of people that were around me that were uh, used to the performative strong horse, were like they didn't like it, because they were put off by it,
Hmm.
and because they had certain expectations of me, and I just had to let go of all that, and it didn't bother me doing that, and because for every gain, there's a loss. And so you got to let go of something to have a space to replace it with, and
Yeah,
authenticity is a huge piece, man. It's
yeah.
huge.
It is. And so that's the very essence of becoming right there, is that what we're becoming is the truth of ourselves. And that's what that would be my definition of authenticity. And it's the truth of ourselves beyond our upbringing, beyond our religion, beyond everything that exists in this uh, outer realm, the 3D realm. Um, very little of that is going to lead to authenticity. But what will give you clues on the path that you want is nature. Nature is going to be the one thing that maintains its authenticity, because in a way you could say it really doesn't know any better. It's not egocentric.
Right, right. And another defining aspect of it is, I think as you become more authentic and as you integrate more authenticity, all of a sudden you find yourself being more conducive to having knowing,
Yep.
that, and not knowing, oh boy, do I know everything, but just intuitive and intuition, and things that seem to come to you naturally, and they just make a whole lot of sense, and
Mhm.
you start following them and you start and that becomes it almost becomes like a adventure, because you're seeking what it is that you're knowing, that's multi-layered, and it just keeps going and going and going. As soon as
Yeah.
like a lotus, I mean, once as soon as one area opens up, it exposes a whole nother area of knowing, and you're like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah. And that
Let's
word
keep
intuitive,
going, see what else we got. I mean, it's mind blowing.
it's a, yeah, it is. Um, so there's this thing where in the what you might call the rational world, that egocentricity of rationality, where everything's got to be scientifically based, intuition gets a bum rap. And
Right,
and I would want to explain to people that your intuition isn't the knowing, but it is a seriously large assistant to knowing if you can just trust it, right? Intuition, people will say, I don't act intuitively because I have reason. And truly, it's reason, it's emotion, it's observation, and it's intuition. They all gather together until you get that bing bong of what knowing is, you know? So it's all, and there's the adventure is trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think you can relate it to, again, if people say, well, what are the old systems that are breaking down? What exactly are you talking about?
That's a good question.
There's a structure there that has been, and it's served mankind very well. I mean, this is not disrespecting it, but knowledge has been accumulated, which not, I define knowledge as a accumulation of man's experiences as they are recorded and translated and then expanded upon, and people take somebody a piece of knowledge and they expand on it. And but if it's following that scientific paradigm, which we have pretty much,
Mhm.
um, which we would call reason, the scientists would call reason, like you're right, is it X's out that intuition, and that intuition that's really connected into knowing, which is connected into the natural world.
Yes.
And so right, and so you're it's like it's really going to be a matter of just readjusting the dials, on your receiver, and saying, wait a
Uh-huh.
minute, if I want to really experiment with being authentic, I'm going to change my dials and my perceptions and open myself up to things that I haven't considered before. And that can be something as simple as, instead of watching TV, I'm going to go out and lay under the stars and watch
Yeah.
the sky. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that simple.
There's a thing that I tell people, which maybe is what I should have said to begin with, but I, okay, you, hmm. Here's the words I say. Let me just go from there. When I'm no longer transmitting, I'm receiving. And that gets back into that performative, that gets back into that identity, that gets back into that lack of mental quiet or stillness. All of that, when I'm no longer out there saying, hey, this is me, look at me, this is what I'm doing. You see what I'm doing? I'm thinking, I'm feeling, I'm doing all this, I'm doing this. Are you there, God? I'm doing this, I'm doing, and it isn't until I can quiet all that down, lay under the stars, stop transmitting into the universe and just see what's available to receive. And that's where your intuition starts to really wake up. And it doesn't kill your reason. It just opens up a new uh, dimension of perception, a new door of perception.
Yeah, and I think too that that's really, you just gave the definition of the movement out of the patriarchy into the matriarchy. You know,
Uh-huh. I
I
hope
mean,
so.
a lot of people want to try to make it gender based, and say, well, man's one that screwed all this up, and it's time for the woman to take over, and most of those have way too much injury in their male shield, so they're not really replacing anything,
Uh-huh.
they're just a different gender coming in doing the same shit, you know, and
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
no, and I think that the energies that are coming into the earth right now are the stabilizers and the transmitters and the transitioners that are going to create that movement, because
Hmm.
you and I can sit here and talk about it and people can listen to this, but unless they can feel results in a pretty short period of time, because that's kind of the way we're wired, um, it's going to be very difficult for them to convince themselves to let go of these things that are involved in their transmitter and their performance and blah blah blah,
Hmm.
unless they can feel something. And I think that's coming. I feel that that shift is occurring pretty fast, quite honestly.
Yeah, amazingly fast. And I'm so encouraged now seeing all of that change that's happening. And I get a good hit every day when when I find another person who's saying, things are things are shifting, and it has to be an individual shift of consciousness from each and every one of us to make that whole, to rise the entire community, the global community, up into a new level of perception. One of the things I think that humans are transformers, and that we are capable of receiving this energy from somewhere. Maybe it's from off the planet. Let's just use it in let's say it's star energy, right? So we can
Right,
receive this
right.
star energy, and it can be coming down into our field, this thing that we're, with all the layers of the emotional body and the physical body and the intellectual body and all the little layers of that thing. We can bring that down into us at a higher frequency and then transform it into something that the world can understand. And by doing that, and that's the essence of shining your light. You take the light in from wherever it is, you get the best light you can find, and then you just spread that around like the ripples on the pond. I think that's
What comes to my mind is that, I mean, that's like when we would do medicine journeys down to Palenque, in Mexico, and we would be, we'd have to go into these different temples, the ones that had been uncovered. There's still plenty that haven't been. I think they've only uncovered like 30% of it, but we would have to go in there and we would have to tune in and then get some, come to some resolution about which part of the star system is this thing connected to, and
uh-huh.
then we'd have to come back and sit down with the Nagual and go, all right, well, I was just in the Temple of the Jaguar, and it seems to be a lot of sexual energy in there, and he'd say, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's connected. So people that needed healing, if they came into the shaman and if they were having sexual issues, they would send them to the Temple of the Jaguar,
Yeah.
and they would sit in those energies and allow that to flood over them because that's where they were weak. That's where they were
Uh-huh.
lacking, and they would take that abundance of the love of the Star Nation people for the humans, and
Hmm.
they would take it in and integrate it and become more whole. And if that's the greatest science I've ever heard.
Right.
I mean, you know, I've never
Yeah.
heard anything better than that, man. And of course, I experienced it too.
Yeah.
Which it's one thing to talk about; it's another thing to be sitting in one of those temples, going, "Wow, man, whew, there's something going on here." You know, I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm so grateful to have had that experience. I mean, it was phenomenal. But I think the point here is that what we're moving into isn't new.
No.
It's
Yeah.
not
Right.
new. It's a different world that we turned our back on that we're now going to reconnect into. So it's not we're not, well, we are inventing this as we go along because it's new to us,
Mhm.
but it isn't new to the human species.
Right.
So I think that, the other thing is for years and years and years, I've always said, well, the cavalry's not coming, man. The cavalry's not coming. You're on your own. You better get it together. Your success or whatever. Now, I think the cavalry is coming.
I hope so.
I really do. I mean, and that is so amazingly hopeful. I mean, it
Hmm.
just is. It's just mind-boggling. And it's so it's exciting. I mean, it's just exciting what's getting ready to unfold here on this
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah. I need to go back to that idea of first contact is kind of a misnomer, because contact has been made. They're here. It's just a question of whether or not they're ready to really, really, interact. So I don't think that we're waiting for aliens to appear. I think that we're waiting for them to engage,
Well,
you know.
and I think that they've been waiting on on the consciousness of this planet as a
Yeah.
whole to begin to rise, so that so they're not coming in and going, um, "Hey, we have some new news for you," and have us go, "Yeah, well, that sounds great, but you're kind of freaking us out."
Right.
You know, I
Yeah,
mean, there needs to be some receptivity, like, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, there's some people like us are sitting there talking about this, like, yeah, man, this is normal shit.
Bring it on.
Bring it on. Woohoo. So anyway, but it's exciting, man. And I mean, it really is. And I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I don't give thanks for being able to be alive and able to see this, particularly armed with the knowing that I've developed over the years and years of being practicing shaman. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's just a mind blower. It's just, I love it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, that's a good stopping point, actually. We're at 29 minutes or so.
Okay.
So uh, let's finish this one off. I don't exactly know what we're going to do for the next one, but we can just keep going and title it later. Come up with a title
Sounds
afterward.
good. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Peace.
Yep. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you on the upside, the flip side.